Salut à tous. Alors aujourd'hui, j'ai la chance de pouvoir interviewer Joe Harley. Joe Harley de chez Blue Note, producteur et responsable de la série de rééditions Tone Poet. Tone Poet, les fameuses rééditions en vinyle des classiques et des titres moins connus aussi du catalogue Blue Note. Blue Note, on rappellera, c'est sans doute le label de jazz le plus important et le plus connu de l'histoire. Alors, je vais conduire l'interview en anglais. Je vous proposerai d'activer les sous-titres générés automatiquement par YouTube. Si la traduction s'avérait un peu approximative, je vous proposerai d'ajouter des sous-titres à ma vidéo un peu plus tard. Il faudra me le dire dans les commentaires. Alors, je vous dis à tout de suite pour l'interview de Joe Harley.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
can you hear me too?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Thank you for being my guest. Very nice to meet you. Thank you very much for
Same
doing
as
this.
well.
Thank you. So, thing is, I've just done a quick introduction in French for my viewers, but we will do the interview in English.
Okay.
Maybe you speak French, no? You speak French?
No.
Okay, no problem.
A couple of words here and there, but that's about it.
Okay, that's not a problem. I will sub for my viewers after the interview. That's why
Yes.
that's why we are not live right now.
Yes.
So, Joe, you are a producer at Blue Note Records, and you are the supervisor for the Tone Poet series, the mighty Tone Poet series, vinyl reissues from classic and not so classics, deep cuts from the Blue Note catalog through the years. Blue Note, not to be mentioned, is the most famous label in jazz history. So these reissues, and especially these Tone Poets reissues, are really a treasure for young people. Just to make a quick introduction, you run a company before Blue Note, which was Music Matter Jazz. That's right.
Well, Music Matters Jazz is really run by, or was started by, Ron Rombach. And
so was okay, your partner.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we started that program of Blue Note reissues in 2007, and which it turned out to be very successful. The scope of it in terms of sales and reach is, of course, much smaller because we're just a little, two guys.
Yeah.
But we did that. Actually, it continued on until just year and a half, 2 years ago. And not with new titles, but a few titles that had been done before on different vinyl formulations.
Okay.
And then the Tone Poet series was conceived in 2018, and the first releases came in January, I believe that's right, January or February of 2019.
Yeah, the series began in 19, I think. Yes, 19.
Yeah.
It was let me check. It was a Dexter Gordon record, I think, Clubhouse. Is that right?
No, the first two releases were Wayne Shorter's Etc.
Etc. Yeah,
and
okay.
Chick Corea, Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, which that one is not, that was on a label owned by Blue Note, but called Solid State. There's a family of labels that are also owned by Blue Note.
So until tomorrow, there is roughly 70 titles for the Tone Poet series.
I think that's right. Yeah, I believe that's
right.
That's
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And for this year, for 2023, there is, I think, 22 releases announced, which were announced so far on the Blue Note website.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are not gonna run in all the releases because the interview will run for 6 hours maybe. So I picked up some titles, I think, for maybe you can tell us your story.
Yeah.
So for this year, the first release was a kind of modern record. It was a Scolo Ofo by John Scofield, Joe Lovano, Holland, and Foster. Yeah, am I right?
Yes.
It's the first release for this year. It's a record called O from 2002. It's a pretty modern record.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every year, I like to slot in one or two from the modern catalog, records that were important to me for various ways or spoke to me. And particularly when I find out that these sessions, even though recorded in the modern era, were recorded originally to analog tape.
Okay, it was an analog recording. Oh, I did not know. Okay.
Yeah, that released by John Scofield and Joe Lovano, Dave Holland, and Al Foster is interesting in that, in addition, well, I love the music, big fan of all those guys, but it's interesting in that it was recorded in the old style, meaning that this was recorded live to 2-track, like Rudy did the old ones,
Okay.
like Rudy Van Gelder did the old ones. In other words, there's no mixing or punching.
No multi-tracks.
Yeah, just 2-track. So the mixing is done as they're playing, and what they played is what you get.
Okay, it's kind of old-fashioned Blue Note style Rudy Van Gelder recording, Hackensack or Inglewood Cliffs,
Yes.
I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. Okay. So the Tone Poet series mainly focus on deeper cuts from Blue Note, lesser known recordings. Although there was a hit last year where John Coltrane's Blue Train. It was in fact an album that you issued previously on Music Matter Jazz.
Yes.
And you choose to do the Tone Poet of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The primary motivator, normally I am not really interested in, for this series, going back and redoing what we did at Music Matters, because once you go down that road, you'll end up just repeating yourself over and over again. And I don't personally, there's so many great records, so many, that I didn't want to open that door. The reason we did with Blue Train was I always knew there were some extra tracks. I didn't know there was a whole album's worth of extra outtakes. And when I found that out, that sort of changed the calculation. And I thought, okay, there's also tons of session photos. And I thought, okay, we'll make an exception. We'll do this one. And it'll be both record, the original, and then along with it, the second record of all the outtakes. And there's some, you can hear Rudy talking and the musicians talking. There's a little bit of that, which you have to be judicious about it. You don't want to have just endless minutes, because once you hear it one time, do you really want to hear that 15 times? But I would leave in a few minutes or a minute as they're making last comments before a take started. because I have to view it like, if I find it interesting, then I have to imagine some others will find it interesting too.
Yeah, it's kind of an historical artifact.
That's right.
In a way, it's interesting in itself for fans, many fans of his iconic record.
Yeah.
So does that mean that older titles you did on Music Matter Jazz, I think of some, this one, maybe, excuse me, a second, like this one. It's not a Music Matter Jazz, but it's 70 reissue of this record, The Night in Tunisia by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. You did this one, if I'm not wrong, on Music Matter Jazz?
Yes, we did.
In the future, do you want to redo this, some kind of iconic records like this one?
Well, the answer is records we did before at Music Matters won't be in the Tone Poet program. Where they might end up very well, may end up, is in what we call the classic series.
The classic.
That's run series by a great friend, Jim Kurzman. And so a lot of those titles will end up in that series.
Yes, I think there is some Herbie Hancock record scheduled for this year, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So yeah, you focus mainly on deeper cuts. I think
not exclusively. There's been a number of titles that, depending on your point of view, might be considered more frontline or well-known. What's an example? Dexter Gordon, One Flight Up. We did that. We never did it in the Tone Poet series, and so you'll see some titles. Lee Morgan, The Cookers, another one. There's actually quite a few that are very much in the realm of Blue Note titles that many people are familiar with, that will end up in the Tone Poet program. But I also I like digging into some of the lesser known titles, and there's some that don't speak to me and we just don't do them. But there's a lot.
There are still quite well-known titles for jazz heads like us. I think of Grant Green, I Want to Hold Your Hand for December. It's a known title. It's a well-known title. So is Wayne Shorter, Schizophrenia, which is a crazy free record.
Yeah.
You like this? You're into this kind of stuff?
I Blue Note, when you look at the range of styles of music in the jazz category, it's really broad. It's I know people tend to think of it as all kind of hard bop, but and there certainly is a lot of that. But,
yes, I see. The catalog is so huge.
It's huge.
It covers a lot of style, of course.
And I personally, I like all of it. I really do. I like the groove stuff with Lou Donaldson and with Jimmy Smith and other B3 players, Babyface Willett and Big John Patton. I like all that stuff. I like the more outside stuff as well. We did a whole box of Ornette Coleman that
the last jazz box. Okay.
Really enjoy. I really like all of it. The only period that and I've thought about this a lot, that I sometimes don't relate as much to, I think it might be because I was there at the time, would be some of the titles where after Francis Wolff and Alfred Lyon and even Duke Pearson left. And so I'm talking about, mid 70s, where the label got a bit more into sort of
a kind of turmoil after the departure of
fusion, kind of this sort of thing. I don't personally hear that as much, which is funny because when when those records were released, I bought them all and I liked them. So it's just changing tastes over time.
Yeah, sure.
But no, there's so many records, and when you factor in the Pacific Jazz catalog and United Artists and parts of the Capitol,
there is a lot of Pacific titles in the
yes.
in the 23 run. I see one. Maybe you can tell us about this one. Carmel Jones, the remarkable Carmel Jones. Carmel Jones is a trumpeter which was a bit under the radar, I think, for the jazz history. Simply, can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, I've had that for ever, not since it was released, because I would have been 8 years old, 9 years old when it was released, so I didn't have it then. But I had it probably in the late 60s. I picked that up, and the playing is great, really great, and it's an early recording of Gary Peacock on bass, and who's fantastic. Yeah, the lineup there is great, and the material is really spectacular. It's really so it's a record I always loved, and I had it on my list from the beginning, but hadn't gotten around to it yet. My lists are huge.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. Yeah. I think there is a thing with the Tone Poet series is to put light under these lesser known artists. I think of Andrew Hill, one of my most one of my favorite records on the series is this one, Passing Ships.
Sure.
It was a first. It's not a reissue. It's a first issue on record for
vinyl.
This one.
Yes.
On vinyl, yeah, on vinyl. It was issued on CD at the beginning of the 2000, I think. And right. And you put some Andrew Hill stuff. I think there was Blackfire in the in 2020, I think. And this year it's Dance with Death on a 68 record, which will come out on March, I think.
Yeah, great record.
Yeah, I didn't know about, and I didn't know a lot about Andrew Hill. I heard the name, but it's really thanks to the series that I get into Andrew Hill, and I think for now it's one of my favorite jazz pianist. For I put him on the same level as Herbie or Mal Waldron and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. He's there are these pianists that who they are. Their style is so profound that within seconds who's playing. Monk, of course, Herbie Nichols.
Yeah, Monk, of course.
Yeah. Andrew Hill, Herbie. There's and I'm drawn to that. And Monk, of course, got tremendous amounts of attention later. When those early Blue Notes came out, he wasn't getting attention. They didn't sell. And those records, you have to remember, those early Monks came out in 1947.
Yeah.
So to listeners of that time, they didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah,
Musicians,
it was kind of free jazz before the free jazz came in for the listeners of that time.
yeah, it was
In
just
the
the
40s.
tonality was so
Yeah.
unusual. The musicians on the scene at the time were worshipped him. You know, they knew, but a lot of the listeners, it was so fresh and so unexpected that they didn't quite know what to make of it. It took a few years.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, there is a movie by a French director, Alain Gomis, on Thelonious Monk, which came out. You know about it?
Yes.
It's but basically it's an old French TV show that was recut by the director nowadays, and it's out on the movie right now. And I will interview the director maybe later this year. It's a quite an impressive movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
You plan on doing some Monk titles later, maybe?
Well, actually, those are coming in with Monk in Blue Note. There's, you know, it's pretty
I think
limited.
there is a classic series. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in the classic series. So you'll see the second volume of, oh gosh, what's it called? The Genius. I'm forgetting the first title names, but those records will be in the classic series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm jealous.
So,
I would have.
yeah,
I
you
would
would have.
love to have had him in Tone Poet, but
Okay.
Jem spoke first, and so
Okay.
I respect that.
Yeah, I mean the classic series are great, but we can go into the object, the record. It's the Stoughton jacket which makes the record really the gatefold, of course, the session photos.
Yeah.
All these fit makes the object quite awesome. I must say for reissue, and so we maybe we go a little in the 23 run. So of course, there is this Andrew Hill record, Dance with Death. So it's a 68 record, 1968 session. Why did you want to put this one?
Gosh, that one's been on a list for years. And there's others. You'll see more Andrew Hill that we have already done, but that one, Charles Tolliver, the great trumpet player and composer, is on that. He's fantastic. Billy Higgins. It's a fabulous record, and as with most of Andrew's records, it's all his compositions, and it's quintet. Some of Andrew's recordings use a bit bigger group, or the configurations are different. You'll see more. It's not like I'm doing them in order of my personal preference, because when it comes to an artist like Andrew Hill, it's very hard. I don't think in terms of this one's number one, this one's number two. The dilemma is that we can't do them all at the same time. There just isn't the pressing capacity. So if in a perfect world we'd put out 100 records a year.
Yeah, of course.
but we can't do that.
So there is also some funky stuff, maybe some on the soul side, like Donald Byrd Slow Drag, the 68 record.
Yeah.
You called it the deeper groove on Blue Note. It's is that right?
Yeah. It's everyone in the studio that day was clearly in a great mood and feeling it, and to the point where on that particular track, Slow Groove, the Billy Higgins starts to kind of, towards the end, he starts kind of singing and rapping.
Yeah, I've heard on digital. Yes, it's quite amazing.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I called it Slow Groove. Slow Drag is the title of the tune and the album as well. But
okay.
yeah, it's a great record, and I played test pressings of that for people that come over, and 100% of the time, you know, you see a big smile on their face, and their body's moving, and they're feeling what was going down in the studio that day.
Yeah, it's quite funky stuff. I like it too. So, are there some tapes you were after that are so damaged or maybe missing tapes that you
Well,
were searching for some titles? Are there a lot of them that are not in great shape for record production?
you know, remarkably, the vast majority are in great
Hmm.
shape.
Yeah,
You know, Blue Note was very, and United Artists, who bought the label after Alfred and Francis sold it, they were very careful with storage. And then EMI and now Universal Music, whose parent company, um, were very careful with how they stored those tapes. So, you know, the older tapes from the 50s and early 60s are
hmm,
mostly Scotch 111, and those tapes sound, I always say, they sound like they were recorded yesterday. You put
yeah,
them up in
yeah.
the studio, and there's no audible degradation at all. It's
Mm,
really, you don't have to do anything. I can't, you know, you have to repair a splice. Sometimes the splices come loose and they have to be repaired,
yeah,
but that's no big deal. Um, in later in the mid 60s, roughly, tape formulations began to change. Um, I think, as I understand it, there was a lot of stuff in those early formulations, like Scotch 111, that you just can't use anymore. Um,
okay,
you know, I don't know exactly what the substances are, but I always used to say maybe it's whale oil or something. I don't know, but
yeah.
but
I've heard this
tape
too.
was
Yeah.
really tough. I mean, it
Mm,
really was. And you don't bake those tapes. They're acetate based, and so you don't have to bake them, and you wouldn't bake them. It'd be wrong thing to do to bake those. The newer formulations, frequently you do have to bake those because the tape can get sticky, and
yeah.
so you have to bake them, and then that makes the tape playable and
Okay.
without generally any trouble. You asked if there are tapes that are missing
Mm,
or
yeah.
unplayable. I only know of two.
Yeah.
Um, one is a Duke Pearson record called Sweet Honeybee,
Sweet honeybee. Yeah. Okay.
where we just, I don't know what happened to it. Nobody knows, but all that exists is what's referred to as a needle drop. Uh,
Okay.
so that one is missing. Who knows? Maybe it will be found, hopefully, because it's a title I'd love to do.
Are you after certain items, certain tape that you're looking for in the world?
Well, when I submit to the tape vault person at Capitol,
Hmm.
uh, great guy named Jack Arenas. Um, so before a series is finalized for the year, I will have submitted these titles and asked for a search to make sure that everything is okay. And um, uh, and so every year we do that. The other title that I ran into, it's a little embarrassing, but is a Grant Green title called Olio, and
Okay.
and we put it up, we baked it, and
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't budge.
Okay.
You couldn't even get it to do anything. And
Yeah.
we baked it again, same thing. But the irony is, when I opened the tape box, I found my own note from 2008 when
Okay.
Ron and I wanted to do it at Music
For
Matters.
MMG. Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd totally forgotten that we had ran into the same thing in 2008, and so I
Yeah.
saw my own note, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot." Um, Other than that, so far, that's it.
Okay.
Um,
Great.
that maybe
Hmm.
maybe that will happen at some point down the line, but hopefully not. But those are the only two instances I'm aware of.
Okay. Are you after some holy grail release that you absolutely want to put out on this series?
Sure.
Yeah, but you won't tell me.
Well, we just announced 22
Yeah, yeah, of
titles.
course.
The
Yeah.
we're actually we have a whole another year after that already
Mm.
mastered, and I already have
Okay.
test pressing sitting over here. Um,
Okay.
but the problem is when you start talking too much about stuff that's coming out over a year away,
It puts
people,
pressure.
well, they get frustrated, and
Yeah.
why can't you move? I like this title, and I don't care about the other one you did, and so why can't you switch? Really, I get this stuff all the time. Um,
It's kind of consumer craziness, I think. But
yeah,
yeah, it's I see what you want. Yeah.
and I understand it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Human
Mm.
nature. Everyone
Yes.
is concerned with what they personally like. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Okay.
all like that, but when
Yeah,
you
yeah.
do a program like this, you accept. I accept from the beginning, you're not going to please all the people all the time.
Yeah, sure.
There might be some that like everything, but you're going to get people that um, like, I've had letters from people, why do you hate this artist? You refuse to do him. And I have to write back and I say, I love that artist. Um, we've already mastered 2 records by
Mm.
that artist, and you just haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, yeah, sure. You can't have
Um,
everything that you want. Yeah,
yeah,
for me
I get
personally,
it.
yeah, I agree.
I
There's a lot
understand.
of titles that I would like to be pulled out because the originals are too pricey or
Yeah.
the reissue is not available. Yeah. But yeah, I understand that we can't have everything, of course. Yeah. Are you into some foreign jazz,
Yeah,
such as French jazz or
sure. I
yeah?
follow what the fellow at Sam Records puts out. I
Yeah.
follow um,
I, I've interviewed a Fred at some record last year, by the end
yeah,
of last year, and
yeah,
in fact we did a shout out of Blue Train because he had the MMJ in the shop
yeah.
and the Tone Poet. In fact, the cover art was not identical. The two, I think there was some differences.
So when you look at the hit, that's an interesting
Yeah,
observation. When you someone actually did a survey of how many variations of the Blue Train cover exists, and when you go back to the first edition, the actual first edition, the tint on the cover is actually more greenish. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
later that it began a whole parade of different tints. even the second edition, I think in 58 or maybe late 57, maybe 58, already the tint's changing. So it depends on what the person has. You know, it might be very early, but the tint, you should see this article. I think the guy from what's his name, the London jazz collector, did a whole piece about Blue Train some years ago, and it's there's got to be 25 different tints. In the modern era, it goes all over the place. You get some that are almost purple. You get some that are all kinds of shades of blue. But the actual original was a bit more, you could call it aqua or green or whatever. And
it's a tint of green,
it's a tint of green. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so some records are great. He put out French sessions from the 60s, from the 70s, a great reissue label. French is a very nice guy, Fred.
And, we the people who do this, we all know each other,
of course,
and we admire each other's work. There's the fellow, you know, Sam Records. There's Wallenbink and Holland. There's or the UK. There's what Zev Feldman does, this great restorative work with his label. A number of different labels.
Intervention record. I think of intervention record. I think of a Charles Lloyd title on intervention record, which is, I think, Manhattan Stories. I think a title like that. And in fact, it reminds me that I read somewhere that Charles Lloyd nicknamed you the tone poet. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've worked together for many years, going back to ECM days.
ECM. Okay. Okay.
We're actually going in the studio next month.
Oh, for a Charles new record. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. We have 40 minutes. It was great talking to you.
Same.
And thank you very much. I will add subtitles for my viewers. And to everyone, thank you for watching. Bye bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.